Welcome, welcome to the best football show. I'm Brian Baldinger here, and I'm just back from Indianapolis, where I spent 2 full days there this weekend, really taking in everything that you can take in because it's really the NFL's version of baseball's winter meetings. I mean, everybody is there. So, anyways, we're going to get into it. Everything that I saw, everything that happened over a 4 day period of time. We'll get into it here today. We're going to take your calls, take your take your questions. This is live. You can find me at Baldy NFL across all social media platforms, from Instagram to X to YouTube, you name it, TikTok. And then you also can download this Best Football Show on your free Odyssey app. Like it, subscribe to it, tell your friends about it. Let's grow it because it's that time of the year. And I was busy. I got on a plane on early Thursday morning, and sitting right behind me on my American flight from Miami to Indianapolis was Dan Marino. So Dan Marino sitting behind you. You start talking about the quarterbacks in this draft, and so that was one conversation. But honestly, it could be anything. I'm walking down the hallway of the convention center. One day I see Leslie Frazier. I've known Leslie Frazier for a long time. He's now the defensive coordinator in Seattle. And immediately he wants to introduce me to Mike McDonald, head coach at Seattle. So we start talking. I'm talking with a friend of mine at the JW Marriott, and here comes Aaron Glenn from the New York Jets. Friday, I spent watching all the combine in the Pittsburgh Steelers box, talking to Arthur Smith and personnel people. And look, I mean, there's general managers that are there. They're not even watching the combine. They're just busy talking to agents. Starting the threads of trades or transactions or whatever, and all their minions are doing all of the work and scouting everybody. So it's really everybody is there: coaches, general managers, personnel people, influential people in the media. It's a place to be seen. But the big news happened because the quarterbacks always drive this process. They just do. It's a quarterback driven league. Sometimes I joke around and say it's a cornerback driven league, but I don't think it's a great draft for corners. So it's a quarterback driven league. And we know teams at the very top of this draft, from Tennessee to the Giants to the Jets, there's to the Raiders. There's just a lot of quarterback needy teams. And there's never enough good quarterbacks. So on Friday, the news comes out, reported by a lot of different, media outlets, but Ian Rappaport from, NFL Network, who I work for, reported that Matt Stafford has agreed to a deal in principle to stay on board as the Rams quarterback. And honestly, what happened last week was the Rams told Matt Stafford, look, go out there and shop your services. See what's out there. And then, but make sure you listen to what we have to say. So, whether you want to believe any of the reports of Stafford in Montana, and there's Tom Brady, believe, whatever reporter you want. Was this an orchestrated meeting? Was this a chance meeting? I don't really care. I'm not a reporter, and I don't care. But I know that they were there. I know the Giants were extremely interested in the services of Matt Stafford. They need a quarterback. Right now, the Giants have, they have Biscuit. They have, they've got one quarterback on the roster right now, and it's not a great option. So Cutlets is there. That's not a quarterback for the future. So I never believed Stafford wanted to leave the Rams to go to a team like the Giants that are building, and maybe they're ready to compete this year if Stafford was there. Go get Travis Hunter and, go get an offensive lineman and put an offense together. Stafford's been with Sean McVay. They've won a Super Bowl. They've been to the playoffs. They were with the third down throw of beating the Eagles, in January. That's a good team, a young team, and it's well coached. I never believed he wanted to leave, but, you had to give these teams a shot because money's important. I mean, he's 37 years old, and he's not one of the 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the league, but he's one of the best 10 quarterbacks in the league. So he wanted to get paid, so he shopped his services. Matt Stafford's going to be a Ram. So because he was the most sure thing in the quarterback carousel of free agents. There's Aaron Rodgers, there's Kirk Cousins, there's Justin Fields potentially, there's Russell Wilson, there's quarterbacks out there. But nothing like you go back and watch that last game of Matt Stafford against the Eagles, and you're like, that guy can still sling it. He can still read a defense. He still throws the ball. In a snowstorm in South Philly, like the guy took the team right down the field, was at the 12-yard line, ready to go knock the Eagles out of the playoffs. So anyways, that was big news. And then on Saturday, Deebo Samuel got traded. And so, immediately I start doing a breakdown on Deebo. And, coming off his best year ever in 2021, he's been a declining player, at least statistically. He doesn't have the same number of catches. He isn't the same guy out of the backfield. He isn't the same guy after the catch. But in San Francisco this year, outside of George Kittle, who played well? Everybody got hurt. Every running back got hurt. McCaffrey had a down year. Trent Williams was banged up. Brock Purdy went backwards. Ayuk never performed to what we saw in the postseason a year ago. So you can say a lot of things. But I know this, Adam George, the GM in Washington, was there when they drafted Deebo, and he saw the mercurial rise and the effect that he has on your team. The fact is that Deebo Samuel in the lineup makes you a tougher team and a more difficult team to defend because of his versatility and what he can do with the ball in his hands. Heck, I was in Green Bay this year when they were getting slaughtered by the Packers, and the opening kickoff for the third quarter, he went 87 yards. Now, it got called back because of a questionable penalty. But, you want to put him in the return game, put him in the return game. But anyways, he got traded for a fifth-round pick, which seems like a bargain. But it was really a win-win for both teams. Washington gets a proven playmaker, and let Cliff Kingsbury go start designing offense with Deebo Samuel, whether he's lining up in the backfield with Brian Robinson Jr., wherever you put him. You put him in the slot, you put him in motion, you put him out wide. Let Cliff go figure out how to best use. I believe in Cliff Kingsbury. So let Cliff decide how they're going to use him in this offense. But at the same time, San Francisco, look, they're trying to sign Brock Purdy. You can't just keep paying every good player in your team top dollar the way they did Christian McCaffrey, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams. They paid every top guy, Brandon Ayuk. You can't keep paying every top guy and still pay your quarterback. They were able to do it with Brock Purdy on a 7th-round contract. They could do it. They made it work. But I talked to Jed Bjork during the season, the president of the 49ers, the CEO, the owner of the 49ers. And he told me back in October they were going to pay Brock Purdy. He's their quarterback of the future. I believed him, and I still believe him. But you've got to start cutting some salary in order to do it. Word is that Brandon Ayuk could be on the trade market right now for the right deal. They've got to clear cap space to be able to afford Brock Purdy. I don't know if, Trent Williams is 37 years old. Maybe he's back, maybe he isn't. But, Nick Bosa makes $38 million a year as their pass rusher. Fred Warner is paid in one of the top 5 contracts at inside linebacker. So this deal was a win-win. It got Deebo off the books. Did they want to lose him? No. You saw the testimonials coming out from Kittle, from Juice, from their wives. They love Deebo. They're all about Team Deebo. They love Deebo in San Francisco. But, the money was prohibitive. So that's what happened. And it's nothing more than just finances. They got to get Brock Purdy signed to a long-term deal. They can't put him on a franchise tag. It's only going to go up. Get the deal done now. Make the cuts where you got to make the cuts. They drafted pretty well last year. Malik Mustafa, and Dominic Pooney. I mean, they drafted well. So they need a good draft. This is a draft loaded in defensive linemen. Go get yourself some. And they need to start hitting on these defensive linemen because they haven't done that. So concentrate on the draft. Get Brock signed. Congratulations. So we talk about the combine, And like I said, I spent Friday sitting in the Steelers box, just watching a team operate. One guy out there is just calling up who's on deck, who's running, who's testing. You know, they've got all of and just watch the operation. They've got all of the updated GSIS stats, 40-yard dash. You can't watch the 40 and vertical jump and everything else going on for some of these guys. So somebody's got their eyes on all of it. It's all getting funneled. It's all getting put into their machine. They have technology that, if you want to go take a look at, say, Derek Harmon, the defensive lineman from Oregon, you can put up they can do instant analysis. This is just one team, Pittsburgh, but other teams have similar type software. You could put similar comps up to what Derek Harmon is based on size, weight, speed, etc. So, this stuff it's instantaneous, and everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Everybody's looking for something different. And then, Thursday I could have done a lot of different things. I really just wanted to concentrate on the drills and the 40. So I really watched because the first drill was just defensive linemen. And this is the best defensive lineman draft that I can remember. Behind me right here, my whiteboard, I've got 15 edge rushers and 15 defensive tackles that literally could all go in day 1 or day 2. Not even day 3 players. That's 30. I've looked at maybe 10. This is so deep and so talented. And it started, honestly, when I went to the Senior Bowl. I went to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, and I watched all the drills for the first 2 days. And, there was Mike Vrabel down there. There was Mike Tomlin. They're all seeing the same thing. They're all seeing big, sturdy, thick, talented defensive linemen. I don't know. I mean, we'll see how this thing goes. But I can see 20. I mean, this is going to be a defensive draft. You're just going to see teams taking these players. I'm looking behind me right now. And if you just look at the edge rushers, Abdul Carter, I know he's got a stress fracture. We got to get that cleared up. But, there's Mykel Williams and, James Pierce and Jalen Walker. I mean, it's, Jack Sawyer and, Skirton. And, I mean, it goes on and on and on. Boston College defensive end is a stud. You go inside, it's just loaded. Shamar Stewart and Derek Harmon and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. It just go on and on and on. And then you watch them work out and you watch them move and you go back and you start plugging in the tape. And then you get to a guy like, just say, a linebacker like Jihad Campbell from Alabama. I watched him work out on Friday night till 8 o'clock at night. And I'm watching him warm up. I'm watching him run a 4.52 at 235 pounds, down from 242. I mean, sideline to sideline, you watch him come off the edge against Will Campbell at LSU and beat him, smoke him. Maybe the best tackle in the draft. Like you watch Jalen Walker, go from inside linebacker to outside edge rusher. Like it is loaded with talent. I haven't even mentioned Mike Green at Marshall. It is. I mean, and then you start going, okay, is Mason Graham really the number 1 defensive lineman in this draft? I mean, why isn't Kenneth Grant who's much, much bigger and slips blocks just as well and chases guys down just as well? I mean, this is going to be something we're going to talk about now for the next 7 weeks is we're going to start stacking these guys. I'm just literally going through one after another. I've watched Jack Sawyer and I've watched Abdul and I've watched Mykel Williams. But I mean, there's so many more to get to. And then you just watch these guys test and you go, you look at what James Pierce did, running in the 4.4s at 200 and, 245 pounds running in the 4.4s. There's some things we got to clean up about. I don't know if it's character issues. There's some things out there about him. But what are you going to do with Kyle Kennard at South Carolina? Nick Skirton from Texas A&M. Shamar Stewart, at 6'5", 290 pounds. I mean, is he the next Cam Jordan in this league. So it is very deep. It is very talented. And it is a lot of fun to watch. And then if you go to the running backs, I mean, the best running back, or at least the number one running back, Ashton Jeanty, didn't work out. And I'm just questioning whether if he regrets not working out. He was there. You could see him physically. He's a freak. But we've got 10 220-pound running backs that run in the 4.4s. Like, can Skatebo and Omar Hampton, can they be first-round picks? Is Trayvon Henderson a first-round pick at Ohio State? I mean, Trayvon Henderson is 5'10". He's 215 pounds. He runs a 4.43. DJ Giddens at Kansas State is 6'1", 220 pounds. He ran a 4.43. How about Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State at 232 pounds? Ran a 4.6. I mean, we might see – so here's the thing. We might see 3 running backs go in the first round. You could see easily Jeanty, Hampton, and Henderson all go in the first round. But you also could see maybe just one going, and everybody saying, well, I'm happy taking any of these guys. Like, they're all going to be – like, if I get Hampton in the second round and we just drop down, we keep taking, defensive linemen and just running on those guys, and we'll get Derrick Henry the second round pick, so maybe we'll just get one of these studs in the second round. But the way the league shifted this year, when we saw the Eagles, the Ravens, the Lions, we saw these teams, Green Bay, we saw these teams running it more than they were throwing it and having great success doing it with stud running backs. And you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, the 12th pick in the draft 2 years ago, and what he did for Detroit. I mean, can Omar Hampton do that at his size? Jeanty, Henderson, Judkins? It's loaded. So I think it's really deep at those two positions. I really enjoyed watching the whole process. And then, and then just listening to teams, thinking about, because free agency starts next week. So, next Wednesday, I believe free agency starts. So, teams got to start stacking these boards very quickly. Like, there's a ton of work to do right now, because what you don't get in free agency, you want to be able to get in the draft. I always thought free agency should follow the draft. Let's get the young guys first. And what we don't get in the draft, let's go to free agency. We saw that back in 2011. It happened that way when there was a lockout. And we saw free agency happen after the draft. I thought that's always been the best way to go. But regardless, this is the order. Draft is April 24th, Green Bay. Right now, free agency starts next week. So teams are like, okay, you can see, all right, do we really want to spend in free agency on defensive linemen? Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, guys in Philadelphia that will be available. Or do we want to go get one of these guys coming out of the draft and plug and play? Because I think a lot of these guys are going to be, day one starters. I mean, you just go through the list of all of them, man. Dayon Walker, at Kentucky. I saw him. He was 350 pounds. This Kenneth Grant at Michigan, he's 340 pounds. Like, he is a big guy. I watched him last night. That guy slips blocks like nobody else. So anyways, there's going to be so much to get to as I start breaking them down. Like I said, wherever you see a red check behind me right here, those are guys I've studied. I mean, I've got 30 guys to study here this week. And I mean, I'm talking, you start watching Walter Nolan at Mississippi, defensive tackle. Like, you just want to keep watching. And you go, this is a difference maker inside, at his size. So anyways, that's been the Best Football Show. I'm glad you could join me here. We'll be here tomorrow. We'll be here Wednesday. We'll be here every day this week. Probably taking a different position group and we'll take a look. But who's your best O lineman sleeper? Like, if you're looking at sleepers, I mean, obviously, when you look at offensive tackles right now, you got to look at Membo from Missouri, and what he did, how he tested, running a 4.9 at his size. His first team All SEC right tackle. Maybe his measurable says he goes inside, but he tested very well. And guys that run a 4.9 at his size, it does make a difference. Backside cutoff blocks, getting out of the perimeter. Like, I'm good friends with Lane Johnson. He ran a 4.7 240. I'll bet Lane Johnson still breaks a 4.8 12 years into this league. Like, speed and quickness does matter, whether you're playing guard or tackle. Like, yeah, Tyler Booker could still be the first guard taken, running a 5.5 40 or 5.6 40, because he's just that powerful, and he gets on people, and he doesn't let them go. But if you want to get out in the perimeter game, you want to get out and get to the second level linebackers, you want to cut off on the backside. Membo is a guy I think that certainly showed up. I think Josh Connerly, tested really well at Oregon. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I think he tested really, really well. Savanea from Arizona, like, he's got questionable tape. He looks stiff, at tackle at Arizona. Probably goes in at guard, but he can move. He's got power. So there's things you could do with him. But he is a little stiff, and that's a concern. Will Campbell, the arm length concern is there, but he's a good knee bender. He started every game at LSU. Durability is a factor. He went up against all the good edge rushers. He competed well. We ran a 5 flat 40. I think he's going to be fine at tackle. Rashawn Slater had those concerns. He's fine. I know guys have gone inside, but I think he's a tackle. He reminds me of the left tackle at Minnesota, like, who has short arms. Reminds me Deion Dawkins when he came out of Temple. There was concerns about his arm length. He's going to be a guard. Guy's been an all-world tackle. Got great athletic ability. So, I mean, those are some of my linemen right here. Inside, I mean, Gray Zabel is going to be I think he's going to be a first-round pick. I tested really well. Watch him at the Senior Bowl. Gray Zabel, I don't know that any offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl took more reps than Gray Zabel. He was a tackle at North Dakota State. I saw him at center. I saw him at guard. I didn't see him get beat. In 2 days, I watched him. He's going to start for somebody, probably at guard or center. Sleeper defensive lineman. Oh, gosh. Let's see. I would say, let me just see some of my notes right here. I would say you have to look at Darius Alexander, okay, at Toledo. I don't know if he's a sleeper or not. But that guy is a stud. He's got thickness. He's got twitch. He's got good size. He tested really well. CJ West, enormous size at Indiana. I mean, enormous size. Like, he's probably a second-round pick right now. Derek Harmon, I think, surprised a lot of people by how he moved and his size. Like, those guys stood out for sure. James Pierce tested really well. Does he bend as well as you like? He bends well. I think he needs more power, but his length, his speed, I mean, he's not getting out of the first 20 picks, I don't think, unless there's some things that show up, in that column of character concerns, which I hear, but I don't know, and nobody's told me anything. But I've heard there's some questionable things, but he was impressive. I would say that, JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State is a guy that you got to pay attention to. Braden Swinson at LSU is a guy you got to pay attention to. And there's some guys, like I mentioned, Jihad Campbell and Jalen Walker. I mean, those guys can rush off the edge. There's no question. I mean, they can be off the ball inside linebackers. They can line up outside and beat you. So it's just a question of how you want to use them. But they're Swiss Army knives in there right now. Look, let's see, a question here about Eagles defense line. Look, they're going to lose Josh Sweat. They're going to lose Milton Williams, probably the free agency. All right, that's fine. But, the safeties, it's a good class for safeties. Really good class for safeties. So I can see that. Malachi Starks, is certainly a guy that's going to be at the top of the board from Georgia. I mean, would make sense. Another Georgia Bulldog in Philadelphia. But if for some reason James Pierce slips the way Nolan Smith did, I mean, they're not going to pass him up. I mean, if he's there, if he drops past 25 for whatever reason, I can see the Eagles moving up and going and get Pierce. You know how he's not going to sit still. He's going to fit in with what they do. But Starks certainly makes a lot of sense right now. Amanwari from South Carolina was just an athletic freak, jumping 43 inches, running like he did at his size. I got to see his overall tackling ability at South Carolina. But yes, I would say the Eagles. I mean, this is an Eagles draft. I mean, I could see them for sure. They, I think, whether they can keep Mekhi Becton or not, I don't know. I don't think Mekhi wants to go, but certainly we'll see what teams want to offer him next week in free agency. But this is a great draft for defensive linemen. How he's going to grab one of these guys, inside or outside, because they're going to lose Milton, and then it's a question of, can Jordan Davis start giving you 50, 60% of snaps instead of 30% snaps? So I think he can. Does Darius Slay get cut? I don't know. Slay can still play. I don't think there's any, but I don't get to see Kelee Ringo play every day in practice. Maybe they believe Keely's ready to go. If he's ready to go, they've drafted him to be a starting corner. We know what Quinyon and Cooper gave him this year. So I don't know if it's a cut. They kept James Bradbury last year, and I thought they'd cut him. And, he ended up basically cutting himself with injuries. But I don't think they want to move on from Slay. There's still a place for him. But if Ringo's ready to go, if they find somebody in the draft, he could certainly, save some money with the salary that he makes. But I know Slay doesn't want to go anywhere. And I know they like him. He can still play. And he gives him that veteran leadership that, Brandon Graham gave him and Fletcher gave him and all that stuff. Like, he's been good for that secondary room for sure. So anyways, Slay, I don't know. I don't have any, I'm not digging on these, this reporter thing about, asking Howie and front office people about Slay. I haven't talked to Slay about it. But we'll see what happens. All right. Well, the truth about Abdul Carter is he's the best player in the draft. That's the fact. All right. So I don't know why anybody would say he's not worth the top 31 pick. He's the most talented player in his draft. Now, the stress fracture, if it is a stress fracture in the foot, is always a concern. Drew Rosenhaus, I believe, is representing him. Drew understands his business as well as anybody. They say it's not going to need a surgery. But, until he's medically 100% and he runs and he tests, you got to kind of, you got to pay attention. But just off the tape, he's a phenomenal player. Not, I don't know if he's Micah Parsons, but he's probably the closest thing we've seen to Micah Parsons coming out. He's probably the closest thing we've seen. I don't know if he's got the balance and the burst that Micah has, because he's unique. But he is a talented player. And in my book, he's the best player in this draft. Now, I'm not taking shots at anybody else, including Travis Hunter or anybody else. But, for my money, Abdul Carter, it'd be hard. If he's 100% healthy, he'd be hard to pass up. So that's my truth about Abdul. I don't know where you're getting not worth the top 31 pick. Everybody I talk to kind of sees him the way I see him. But I'm going to keep studying him. I like watching Abdul play. So anyways, that's been the Best Football Show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in live. Thanks for the questions. We'll be doing this from time to time leading up to the draft. Follow me daily here as I start these breakdowns of all these college kids, and I'll give you exactly what I'm seeing. And we'll talk about the news of the day because this quarterback carousel, as we speak right now, is spinning. And does Aaron Rodgers move? Does Kirk Cousins go? Does Russell Wilson get signed? What do the Steelers do? What do the Giants do? What do some of these quarterback teams, needy teams, do to maybe find a bridge quarterback or anything else? Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you real soon, everybody.